So in today's video I wanted to talk about a practical and probably the best way to get used to actually practicing and playing the modes and getting them into your playing. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around and we'll go through it. So a lot of guitarists kind of worry about the modes, and fair enough, they're wonderful to know and they're really powerful tools. But I always remember when I was, back in high school getting into music theory and really going at it on the guitar. I thought that the modes were going to be this magical thing that, cured all of my life's problems. And fortunately they weren't. But I wanted to give you a way of actually kind of practicing them and using them in your playing so that you actually get them out. Because one trap that I see a lot of my students and just other guitarists in general fall into is we get comfortable with the idea of so I'm in D Dorian, and then you practice, like a good student. You go through and run through all of your, D Dorian modes, and you get your then you go through and you get them all. But when it comes to actually applying them, it doesn't really come out. We don't necessarily practice them a lot. It's really tempting to practice them in isolation in a vacuum. But then when it's actually time, like you're playing over a minor chord and you want to bust out your Dorian chops, it's not really there. So one thing that I really like to do with these is to practice them almost like they're etudes, where I'm super deliberately thinking about the mode and playing it over a chord progression. So to give you an example, I'm going to play let's say a 1-6-2-5 in the key of C major. Pretty common chord progression. So I'll have C major, A minor, D minor, and G, or C major 7, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7 to C again. And what I'm going to do, I'll record it on I'll show you the planning before I show you it in process. But what I would try to do is I want to find, let's say each chord happens for a bar. I want to find 8 notes, so I get to play one full octave of the scale. And I would get, so for C, let's say I'm playing the Ionian mode or the major scale, so that's fairly simple. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then when it goes to D Dorian, it'll go to A minor. So if I wanted to play over A minor and I was trying to stay as strictly in the key as possible, I would fit that because it's a 6 chord with the A minor scale. So I would play, which is A Aeolian is the mode, or A natural minor. Then over D, my 2 chord, I want to play Dorian. That would be the mode that most traditionally fits that. So I would have, and then over G, I'm going to play G Mixolydian. And so, if I were to loop, I would do it maybe a couple times out of time. So for my C major, I'm going A Aeolian, D Lydian, Dorian, and then G Mixolydian. And then maybe, if I have a looper or a backing track, I would track down a nice 2, 3, 4. Now here, I'm going to play over it. 3, 4. Just to get comfortable with how those modes sound and how they feel. So again, I'll do that one more time with a consistent loop so that you can kind of experience it. And I'll go. And what I want to pay attention to is how each of these is kind of feeling, and I'm gonna turn down my playback volume so that it's a little bit more gentle and you can actually hear what's happening. So there's my modes going. Getting used to those, and then I can of course move it to different places. So say I'm doing it in this position, now I would have then D Lydian, G Mixolydian, And so that's a really good way to get into the sound. Stop, looper. Then the next kind of step is thinking about how you could apply maybe some other modes to it. So let's say I want a mode that fits over my minor chords. So let's say as a nice, I'll substitute 2. So over C major, rather than playing Ionian, maybe I want to get a little bit more exotic with it. What if I played a C Lydian scale? Because that has the sharp 11 on it. It brings in kind of this sound to my major chord, rather than just straight up. It would be, you get that sharp 11. Then if you were doing over, let's say over A minor, I'm going to cheat. Maybe I didn't like Aeolian as much. What if I played A Dorian over that instead? So that would sound like this, rather than, so that 6 is raised. And now here when I do this, again, what I want to feel is the difference between these chords. And now to do this, I'm actually just going to use my sustainer here. So if I go C major, then D minor, I'll keep Dorian, then G, my Mixolydian. And that kind of lets you actually feel what the difference is between these chords and kind of get used to playing them in that context. And you can do this with any song you're playing, any kind of chord progression. So let's say I'm playing over something different. Let's say I have what's a good chord progression? Let's say my chord progression is going 1, 4. So I have C major, F major, E minor, A7. So over that, let's say over C, I want to play Lydian. So then over F, maybe I want to play just normal major, which is kind of interesting because normally that 4 chord would have Lydian over it, but then I have kind of a nice sound. Then it goes to E minor. Maybe I'll throw some Dorian on this. And then over A7, I'm going to dip my toes into melodic minor, and if you aren't hip to those modes, that's okay. But just to give you an idea of another sound I could pull out over a dominant chord, what if I played Lydian dominant rather than Mixolydian? And Lydian dominant is a Mixolydian scale with the sharp 4 in it. So there I would have, so here's my C. Ooh. There's my C sustaining. That kind of sound. Then when I go to my F chord, maybe here I just play straight up major. Then when I go to E minor, I said I'd throw Dorian on this, so there we go, I threw in. Then over A7, now here I'm going to play gives it that kind of 7 sharp 11 flavor. And so that's my favorite way to practice these modes, is just get them out of just playing them in isolation. It's of course important to learn them in isolation, but my favorite way to play them is just applying them over songs. And if it starts out initially that you're kind of plotting out and just playing those, like literally, like I want to play C Lydian, so I go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 just so that you can get used to the flavor almost of these modes against the scales that you're pairing them with. I think it's a really important thing to work on. So take the modes out of just being in their isolated boxes and start playing them over tunes and real chord progressions you're doing. But that's pretty much it for me today. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It really helps me out more than you could know. If you want to take a guitar lesson with me, I have a link to the contact page in my website down there in the description. I'd love to work with you on whatever's troubling you on the guitar, and I've actually been working with a bunch of you from YouTube lately. It's been super fun to connect with people all over the world. And last but not least, I got new videos coming out every Monday and every Thursday, and I'd love to see you in the next one. So until I do, I'll wish you a wonderful day, and I hope you have some fun playing the guitar. Thanks.